And hello good people of the internet, it is I, Tommy Kelly, and this is Adventures Moo. And in this episode, I'm going to do another reading. This is from Infinite Self by Stuart Wilde, because you all seem to enjoy the last Stuart Wilde reading I did, and any excuse for me to indulge in some Stuart. So we'll go straight into it. This is step 14 of 33. It's judge nothing, quantify nothing. When we judge and criticise people personally, we divine reality and engage the ego. Light couldn't exist if there were no darkness in which it could shine. Goodness can't exist if there's no evil with it to compare to. So everything is relative. Chapter 2 of the Tao says, it is because everyone under heaven recognises beauty as beauty that the idea of ugliness exists. And equally, if everyone recognised virtue as virtue, this would merely create fresh conceptions of wickedness. For truly being and non-being grow out of one another. Think about it. If you don't judge and don't criticise, what you're saying is, I'm infinite. I let people be. I have no knowledge about an individual's evolution. I can't comprehend if what he is doing is good or evil, right or wrong. He certainly may be acting in a way that I would choose not to act, but I cannot lay down the law and say it would be like this or like that. Not infringing on people means not interfering, not offering them information they haven't asked for, not offering them healing they don't want or need or haven't requested, not meddling in their lives. It means allowing people to be as silly as they want to be for as long as they want to be. In the same way that the God force allows you to be silly as long as you want to be. You don't judge. Okay, there are certain situations where you might be called upon to evaluate, but this is not a personal judgment. Let's say that you are a professional officer in a corporation and you need to pick one employee over another. This isn't judging one person's individuality or personally. It's just evaluating the situation, evaluating two applications for a job and picking one which is more suited. There's a difference, isn't there, between judging and evaluating and selecting. You're not judging the Thousand Island dressing because you decided to go for the oil and vinegar instead. Selection is not judgment. It's making a choice without an emotion or negative response, which is very different from judging. When you're dealing with other people, allow them to be. Or if you don't like what you see, just walk away. Or try to change the situation as best you can without infringing upon them, usually through a good example. Or talk with them in an affable manner, asking them questions, leading them along gradually to where they see the higher ground through their own perceptions and volition, and allow them to freely choose that direction. If you are influential, one word from you could send a person into a totally different direction in their lifetime. It could change their whole evolution. You don't know what they need or what their deep inner spiritual self has decided. They may need high energy or they may need low energy at this time so they can properly understand high energy at a later date. Let me clarify the difference between judgment and observation. Judgment is engaging your opinion and your emotion, judging others for an action or for what they say. Observation is nothing more than commenting on what you or others might observe. So you might casually remark in a restaurant that the service is rather slow, as it has taken an hour for the soup to show. You haven't judged anyone personally, you have just observed. That's okay. Gradually learn not to quantify things so much. That way you get to experience life rather than define it. If you go and watch a movie and you start to quantify it, discussing it with a friend perhaps, you put it in a little box and your perception of it changes. I was walking along in Philadelphia one day. It was freezing cold and I was wearing just a pair of jeans and a shirt. There was a meditation I learned years ago where you visualise a little flame in your heart, you allow that flame to expand, breathing in and out, and it warms you. Because you're thinking fire, you feel warmer. So I was trotting along nice and warm, visualising the flame. The person with me said, "Aren't you cold?" The minute he said that, the flame went out and I was freezing. In Philadelphia you can get pretty cold. That day it was minus who knows what, with a hefty wind factor to boot. By imposing his reality upon me, saying, "Hey, you ought to be cold," I became cold. Right up until then, I was perfectly warm. So you want to be careful what you choose to quantify or impose upon people. Avoid saying, "This meal is very good, this meal is very bad." Just eat the meal. A bad meal should not be emotional upset. It's a gift. It allows you to realise and appreciate what constitutes a good meal. It helps you make selections. Be grateful. To see how once you don't have to define and quantify things, you can just concentrate on experiencing them. You're not putting life into a little box. By not defining it, you can go from the ego's world, which is often very frustrating, to the pleasing state of just resonating with the infinite self. I am and I experience life. I don't see it as high and low, cold and warm, dry and wet. It's neutral. Hey, I'm doing rain. I have no reaction. I'm experiencing happiness. I have no reaction. I'm not yabba dabba doing and swinging off the chandelier. I'm just content. I fly a lot. I know I've now been around the world 97 times, so I've done airport in this lifetime. I like to sit and watch people go by as I'm waiting for planes. Try this little exercise. Go to a crowded spot, a shopping mall, an airport or wherever, and just sit and watch people. But rather than watching them intellectually, watch them from inside the infinite self. So don't say to yourself, that's a pretty dress. That guy's so tall. She's so short. Isn't that child cute? Don't engage the mind, just observe. Do it for 15 minutes when you go shopping on a Saturday. You'll discover how dramatically it changes your feelings. Suddenly you'll find yourself coming from a place of compassion for people. You'll enter into the spirituality inside their infinite self. You'll be resonating a feeling of belonging, a feeling of love, a feeling of caring for them. Not caring in the sense that you've got to look after them, but just enjoying the heroic nature of the humanhood rather than putting them into boxes and saying, that's an Afro lady, that's a Texan cowboy, etc. They're just eternal spirits, schlepping bodies around like you and me. It's an interesting discipline because you learn a lot about people by watching. Once you don't judge, a higher sense of awareness comes forward. You begin to touch their inner self and you observe things about them, subtle information that would not normally be available to you. During my three-day wildfire seminar, I take the guys out into the local town and I have them touch the subtle energy, the etheric energy, of passers-by. I tend to show the men that the height of their perception comes from the lightness of being. Through etheric knowledge and a few simple techniques, the perception jumps several 100% in 2 hours. By touching, perceiving and not judging, the men understand more. A door opens into another world. You can do it for yourself. You don't necessarily need me to help you. And I assume you don't necessarily need to be a man either. Try this. As people walk past, visualize yourself with extended arm. Push the palm of your imaginary hand quickly into their heart. Grab a molecule of that person and pull it mentally back to you. How does it feel? What do you perceive here? Who is this person? Ask yourself, what is the overriding emotion of this individual? Bit by bit, once you've run 100 or 2 over time, you become more perceptive. Eventually, you won't need to mentally reach out and touch people. You look and you know from the emanations they emit. Emanations they emit. So remember, don't judge, don't criticize. Know it's okay to evaluate and select, but don't criticize personally. And try not to quantify things, just experience them. So I like that. You can have your own ideas about whether touching someone etherically is an intrusion or needs, if you need permission to that, that's up to you to decide. And there's certainly different opinions on that. But even if you don't want to do the actual etheric attacking or stealing from people, just that whole notion of watching people rather than judging them and defining things. We have a habit of doing that as humans, not a habit, I suppose a need, because we like to put things, we're pattern making machines and we like to know what things are. Is this dangerous? Is this not dangerous? Is this fun? Is this enjoyable? Is this terrible? And from a chaos magic point of view, I think the less kind of opinions we try to have about things or definitions, the more malleable the world becomes. And it's certainly something I try to cultivate myself. Not always successful. I mean, a book is always a book and I can't pretend it's not a book. But it also has different things to me. Like, as I say, I think books are totems too. So if I just assumed that it was just a book and nothing more, just a collection of words, then I wouldn't have the magic experience I have with some books. And same with people, and the same with situations, same with life, same with all things. The less we can define them, the less we can pigeonhole them, the less we can put them in a box, the less we can add, emotions to them, the more, as I said, more malleable and more magic and more expansive the world becomes, at least in my experience. So good people of the internet, until tomorrow, do not judge, do not quantify, look at the world for what it is and see what it reflects back to you. And may our best days be ahead.